And how to test? It's very simple. Actually, nowadays the tools are really giving everything you need to do this user testing. So ideally, one person asking the question, one person taking the note, the script, and one user at a time, 1 hour. And we need to stream this review with the team behind the scene with brainstorming. So what we say is no hippo syndrome, highest paid person opinion with taking decision. No, we don't want that. We want to take decision based upon data, and it's very important. Hi everyone. So today we'll talk about the design strategy for a centralized data platform. My name is Kévin Boëzennec. My main expertise is about building products that people love, working using the UX technology, the methods, the design thinking, working with innovation, so digital strategy, product design, and innovation. I have about 13 years of experience, both in a global international company like Bank of Singapore, Deutsche Bank, Standard Chartered, and as well as growth marketing, working in a different type of setup, consultancy, and startup. So today you will learn the best practice on the user research with a real life case study on building a centralized data platform, as well as how to execute the strategical vision, building the right thing and building the right thing right. So here is the context. Building a centralized data platform, we have a staff and the senior leaders crisis. On the staff side, it's taking too much time to generate a report when the senior leaders are asking for an analysis. On the senior leader side, it's taking too much time for them to get the report, and they cannot even trust the data. So this is how we started with this research. We first wanted to understand how data are used to take business decisions, as simple as that. So we ran a study across the bank with senior leaders and 19 participants from 7 business units across the globe. From the front office, finance, business managers, change management, risk, and so forth. We did a 1 hour call with each participant, and our objectives were, so first, to capture the current satisfaction level concerning the data usage. 2, understand how the reporting is done across the bank. Now in the bank, there are a lot of reporting to be done, and we wanted to deep dive into it a bit more. Thirdly, we wanted to understand for what purpose the reports are used for. Is it like a business as usual type of task? Is it for an audit perspective or anything else? And lastly, we wanted to understand the volume of report generated monthly. So here, with the UX team, we use the method of interviewing, so to really discover the root of the problem. So the metaphor that we usually use is do you know why people buy a drill? So usually it's to drill a hole in the wall. But if we ask why do we want to drill a hole in the wall? Or maybe it's to put a shelf on the wall. Okay, second why, so but why people want to buy a drill a hole in the wall, and put a shelf on the wall, or to put a shelf in the living room. Okay, why in the living room? Because they want to put books. Therefore, when friends are coming over, they can see in the living room that there are books, and therefore they think that the user is smart. So why people buy a drill is to look smart in front of their friend. And therefore, we use the same model with our colleagues. We ask questions in order to really uncover the real needs and deep dive into the root of why people use data and for which purpose. So the way we digested the data was really to follow the design process, so meaning that we did research, we mapped our personas, we had a few of them, and here is an example of one of the persona that we have for one of the internal staff, who is here a junior analyst. And so we put in perspective this persona alongside a user journey. So here is the user journey of how a junior analyst is experiencing using data to take business decision. And therefore here, if you look at this persona, so his main purpose is to generate report, on the RM behavior, client transaction pattern, and etc. As a person, this analyst is very process-oriented, and he values efficiency at work. Yeah, he's a junior analyst, therefore he really wants to be efficient and to show his managers that he's a good analyst. So the scenario is David recently started a new job in the bank as a data analyst. So his job revolves around data mining and analyzing data. He needs to regularly compile reports to present data trends in the management meetings. So typical expectation, high-performing IT system, accurate data, quality documentation to quickly orient himself, and you want to move from 11 days to 1 day to spend more time on generating insight than capturing data. But so how it looks like. So we can see here the 4 stages of the data analysis. So we have data collection, data transformation, data analysis, and reporting. So first, looking at the task that David is going through during the data collection, we first see that it takes 3 days for him. So first, he has been asked by a supervisor to compile a periodic report on the RM performance. He is not sure where to locate the data and realized there was no data dictionary that could point him to the right place. Then he realized that the required data span across multiple systems, which he doesn't have access after checking with senior team members. So 3 days doesn't seem very easy. Then moving on to the next stage with the data transformation, it takes 5 days, it's quite a lot. So he finally made sense of the data set after struggling a fair bit. He heard from his colleague that the data can't be 100% trusted as there were migration issues previously. So he needs to verify the data himself, hence the lengthy time frame here. And David found out that he's unable to download the dataset from ClickView directly, ClickView the tool. So he verified that some data was missing originally, and it created downstream errors in the dataset. So it's quite troublesome, right? Moving on the data analysis. So finally, he struggled with not having the proper tools to perform his data analysis. He's not well equipped for it. And lastly, he used a suboptimal approach that was massively time draining to achieve his goal. So, trying to find here an Excel, trying to crunch data on one side, it's not easy. And trying as well to use some of the visualization tools that you can find on Excel to achieve his goal with building the report. So lastly, reporting. So this is the fastest here is 1 day. So he presented his report to the senior management team and inevitably began to worry about the next one because it's so cumbersome that he's worried that his job will only be about spending 11 days to create reports. And on top of that, he still doesn't know what data resides in which system and who is the point of contact who will provide him the data or access. He's also worried if his report was accurate because it's impossible to perform 100% on all data sets. So emotionally, you can see that it's quite of a roller coaster here. During the data collection, he was quite excited at first, new day at work. Then he's wondering, but why I don't have the access to the data sets? And lastly, he's finally getting the data set from a colleague, but how do we make sense out of it? Moving on the data transformation. What do you mean? I can't trust the data. So I have to manually verify them, something that is completely unexpected. And then he's completely sad and crying. Here's the emoji. I'm unable to download this data from ClickView, the tool he has, but he cannot download it from there. So moving on, he cannot even install the software to run his own Python code because he knows how to code, and therefore he cannot find a hack here to do it himself, right? He cannot do it. So finally, at the end, he has the hypothesis and the recommendation out of this blurry area, makes sense out of the data. But he realizes that he spends 70% of his time extracting the data and 30% on the analysis. It should be the other way around here in this case. But then finally, he has the management meeting and is able to present his research. So it's really a roller coaster in this case. And so this is what we observe from most of the users here. So then what are the key findings? Because we also, the UX team, shared our findings with the senior management, and the top 5 key findings here are the lack of access right, where who to approach to gather data, and this is across the globe, right, in all the offices. Number 2, there is no single source of truth, too many fragmented data in silo. There's a lack of common data definition. So it's pretty hard for someone who is not used to the acronym and everything to really be 100% sure that what this definition means is true for everybody around the globe, right? There is also a poor data quality, no data integrity and consistency, several sources of data. And lastly, there is a lack of proper tools. Too many human intervention, no analytics tools for complex operation. And this is what we heard really across the offices. So then we, after this UX research, then we came to the proposal. So first of all, we need to refocus on value. And we need to move away from 11 days as a process to 1 day, because the industry standard is we need to have the analyst equipped with a tool, and then he can just perform the report. I don't want to say on the fly because it can take some time, right? But this is what we propose. So from a data architecture point of view, we have the source system that needs to move to a data warehouse. And then from this data warehouse, we need to have the analyst who can get access directly. So data architecture and analytics architecture. And we propose here 4 principles of analytics. The first one is to explore real production data. Unlike IT project, the data analytics starts with production data exploration. 2, create your own dashboard. Every use case required thrown representation of data. One size doesn't fit all. 3, use own business data. Every analytical task requires to enrich the core system data with business definition and other logic to produce meaningful results. And lastly, the analyst to code, same as David. If the analysis is successful, the business users want a regular refresh version. Therefore, can you imagine if every time the poor analyst has to do a report takes 11 days, then the senior management start to ask themselves questions as well, but why it takes so long? This is very simple, right? So this is the strategical vision that we propose. 4 pillars of data transformation addressing platform, people, process, and business value. 4 key pillars. So the first one on the analytics platform, need to build a scalable analytics platform with visualization, data management, and collaborative feature. In terms of data culture, need to increase the data literacy by empowering power users with Python skills within the business. We do not want to rely on IT. The third one, data governance. So strengthen the data governance through the implementation of a data board. And this board is overseeing the data quality, the protection of the data, and the AI implementation. And lastly, we want to focus on business value, analytics use cases, so implementation of use cases with impact on growth, so clients' knowledges, prospect, and so forth, as well as efficiency, so research risk assessment. And here is the strategical vision. So the natural next question will be, but how big is the team to implement this this data platform? So obviously, it's not the designers here to share with you a bit more on the team structure, right? We started with 2 designers to run this this analysis, and here it took us. So we will see very soon how we the methods employed, but it took a month for us to run this analysis. From we start by we have a problem to solve, and how might we discover how data are used to take business decision. Then we start focusing on who to ask these questions, who to interview, and this is where we had to seek for the senior management support as well to give us some names from across the offices. It's a global bank, and then we start scheduling the interview. We work as well on the interview questionnaire. What are the key questions that we want to ask? So we don't want to ask targeted questions at this point. We want to ask open-ended questions. So then the person interviewed is verbalizing their day in life of an analyst from various side of the bank and various level of seniority. Then after this analysis, then we started consolidating the report. And then lastly, we shared our design report to the senior management to seek for the support. The next stage, so obviously, as you can imagine in the bank, the IT system, the data system are key, and we cannot just play around with it to build our new platforms. So therefore, the direction is we do not touch the current data platform. We're building something on the ad hoc, where we can call it the data lake actually, but we need to go around all the business units, understand what is data flow, the architecture, in order to to propose this centralized data platform. So this is something that, well, still going on. So it has been 6 months now. So 1 month for the research, then a few months to set up the team. The analysis is still running here concretely. And today we have a full squad working on it. So what it means, there is a dedicated UX designer working with the team, a product owner, who is looking at the new data platform. There is as well a business analyst, and we have today in the team, sorry, so an architect, an architect working on the new platform. And here is about this innovation project, right? When we're looking at the future, the current bank data platform is having also a serious team working on that. So we work as a squad, and at this stage. So the team is currently deep diving into the requirement, as well as the architecture model and the setup of here. So on the product side, that's for the platform. On the culture, this is already running up with our head of data, the governance as well, and the use cases start to be. So from a design perspective, we have worked on the client journey, so the user journey, touching internal and external users, and those will be handled on the analytics platform. So we will shortly move on about the how to build the right thing right, but it's approximately what I have here to share with you today. So it's a long-term project. We have all to be clear with that. It's not something we do on the fly. It's not something that as easy as going on Google Cloud, as you can imagine, right? Data for a bank is gold. It's our clients' data, therefore we really have to be careful with what we are doing. And there is a lot of change management involved about hiring new analysts who will be able to code, about the tools. An analysis is also running about which tool to use, ClickView, Power BI. And on the technical side, the team is pretty mature for now. So the target delivery will be next year. So it's and it's a 2 years project. Okay, so now moving on the next stage, and I'm sure now you are wondering, but what are the right way, or at least an efficient way? I don't know if it's the right one, but I believe it's not too bad, about executing the strategical vision. So first, building the right thing and building the right thing right. So here, overview of what we call a dual track roadmap. So as I was just sharing with you, we started with design, and now we're moving on the refined version of the requirement before building. So how it looks like, as the name is telling us, we have 2 tracks. The first track is here about the discovery, and we have the second track is below with the delivery. And therefore we start by planning, research, and design. It's an iterative process. Once we get the new design validated with the end users, we can move on the delivery path, where we're building here the prototype, and then we release. We have a shipped product, and with this product, we are measuring, learning, and we move back up to the design phase, where we are enriching our research with this data, right? And it's really interlaced, so that this is how it's the power of this method. So first, discovery. So here we want to build the right thing right, and we want to validate our idea with our customers. So for a data platform, they are primarily internal, but also external, right? There is a touch point. And here, this is what we call a prototype. So a prototype is actually done by design. And this is where we can use several types of tools. So there is Figma, there is InVision, and Sketch, who work very well together. And what we want here, we want to go as fast as possible. We want to design and get feedback. So I will share with you how do we split research and design. First, we understand the target audience problem, the needs and the problems, and then we propose something by design. We come back to the users to test and iterate. The second phase here on delivering, it's really about value. So building the right thing right. And here we move on to prototype. So in an agile way of working, we will not spend 6 months working on a data platform and ship it. As early as we have the user journey translated into requirement, and we will have the support from an architecture point of view, then we'll start shipping as fast as possible this platform with the software that we can we can share with the target audience, test, iterate. This is how we move on. And we want to deliver the value as fast as possible here. So building the right thing, how to validate your idea with your customer. And here we call the discovery sprint. So sprint, maybe you can think that a sprint is 2 weeks. Actually, it depends. The right answer is it depends. As you understood earlier, we really spend a month doing this this research discovery sprint. We spend a month. I will share with you a bit more about how this has been embedded within the dual track later. But here we started with the target persona. What is the job to be done? So we interview, and then at the end of the day, we understand what is the functional requirement as well as the emotional one. My boss needs a report as fast as possible. That's emotional. Or I need to crunch through all the RM's data to understand the pattern of transaction. That's more functional. And then we rank the expectation, right? By understanding a bit more from each of the users, what is the most important feature, that functional expectation that they have versus the top one, emotional. And then we map the user journey as is, so that's what you saw. And this took a month. Then moving on the design, so to be, this is what has been done after that in parallel, right? Because the team, the product team is working now on the requirements for the future, and the designers, and here it was our third designer, so we were 3 designers. And we are designers shared across research, design, prototyping, and then delivery. I will share with you that. Then here the wireframing and the prototyping phase. So here, what are we prototyping, right? When we are talking about the data platform. So, well, we are prototyping the dashboard that will be used by the end users, the analysts, the senior leaders, the relationship manager, and therefore we have different personnel who needs to have different dashboard at different moments of their journey. So mapping a day in life of these users, they need different dashboards and therefore need different type of features as well as automation, right? It can be automated, they can be notified about something new coming on the dashboard. And therefore here we are also prototyping this dashboard. But not only the UI, right? We are talking about the entire user experience and the collaboration in between the different users. And this is something that we can do. We can simulate with using these tools, and then we come back to the users to get the validation. After we have validated this design, this is where we work with the development team as well as the product owner. So there are really 3 key roles here: business, we have IT, and we have here the designers. Business are the hustlers, the designer is the hipster, and the IT folks are the hackers. And we build together the features. So obviously, most of the time, the designer works closely with the BA here to write the requirement, but of course, our IT colleagues are helping as well with the feasibility. So once we have this discovery sprint covered for one target user and one prototype that has been validated with the target audience, this is where we move on from the user journey to the product backlog. So here, as you can see, we have the user journey and the journey for an analyst. If you think about David, the one that we saw earlier, he has to collect the data. And here we're looking at target state. We have to be clear. We don't want to replicate or to work on something which is not working well. Here we're looking at the journey with a 1 day maximum to generate a report and take a business decision. We're not looking at the old 11 days process. So here the user activity will be the typical collection of the data, the analysis, the reporting, and here the task will be, if we drill down, right, the collection of the data, and enter or filtering the data sets. So looking for RM transaction pattern over the last 6 months. And then we have the key features. And here is where we will have the export dashboard, share with your colleague. We have a bit more feature related to play around with the data. We use sometimes the term massaging the data in order to have the accurate answer, right? And this is where here we have, at this stage, as a UX team, we do have the key expectation ranked from high to low. And this is how we work with the business and IT to prioritize the user stories. And as you can see here, the top stories have been prioritized to go to the next release. What it means, this is how the team is able to prepare the sprint backlog. And here is where we are moving on the next stage, and we are building here some prototype. So prototype done by design, prototype is done with a very minimal effort, but we code something that's working. So here, typically, what can be done, a dashboard on ClickView that can be shared with the target audience and get feedback with mock data at the early stage. And it's okay. We just want to test the target journey. And this is where the team will start working on their sprint, right? So most of the time, 2 weeks, it can be 4 weeks. That's something that really depends. Once they have something is built, then we include the users, the test. So what we say is 5 users is actually good enough to get valuable feedback. With 5 users, there is data from Nielsen about that. 5 users give you about above 70% of valuable feedback. Therefore, then this is where we can proceed, and we go back to the research and design discovery, and we move on that way. So it's an incremental approach on this on that side, right? So here is how we. This is first where we are, and this is how we approach the data platform. So, and we call it a learning lab. So why a learning lab is because we first ship the product increment, number 1, we get feedback, we measure and we learn, and then we go back to hear the product and we improve it. Sometimes we have to pivot as well, right? It depends of the more we get feedback, more we have to readjust, but most of the time it's moving on that way. For data platform, yeah, there may be some blockers, but those blockers actually are shared with the senior leaders because, well, there's so much we can do at our level. Sometimes we need to also seek for the senior leaders, and my suggestion is do it as often as possible. And at the end, we launch this data platform to the business, so to the bank, meaning that instead of staying in the learning lab, once we are ready, then we will integrate the bank's data architecture. So first of all, we need an Empower X team, as I was sharing with you earlier. So we do need to have the designers, the hipsters, because they will build the platform in a very quick manner, and they will check with the users that what they are building is desirable. I'm saying they, but they are part of this cross-functional team. So we have the hacker with the developers typically, who here is in charge of the feasibility of the product. And lastly, we have the hustler with the business person who is in charge of the viability. And so having cross-functional team is actually helping a lot. People tend to think in silo, but in Agile and using this dual track roadmap, the key is transparency. And we are working that way today. So of course, we do not agree all the time, right? Sometimes we have to argue a bit, but in the sake of building the right thing. And there is this video here that has been shared about how Apple team is structured, and the vision is about putting raw rocks into a machine to polish them, and you turn. You have the rocks who are very raw and ugly at first, and they bump against each other. So they argue, but at the end, more you put them together and you turn, then more they will get polished and refined at the end. So at the end, you have a very beautiful products with a rock, right? And this is how cross-functional team and self-organizing team are actually arguing, but at the end they deliver a beautiful product. And so we have different type of profile, right? So we have the designers, the technology. We need architects because a data platform requires a lot of architecture knowledge. We have a lot of users who have different type of usages, and well, we really need to deep dive into the piping, to be honest. It takes time, but that's okay. Risk as well. We need to factor the risk in the data management. And yeah, this is part of the product increment cycle. So then the systematic client/the user validation, because we don't want to build something without having this ongoing, continuous measure and learning phase. We don't want to stay. We don't want to fall in love with the product. We want to fall in love with the problem. That's very important. And how to test? It's very simple. Actually, nowadays the tools are really giving everything you need to do this user testing. So ideally, one person asking the question, one person taking the note, the script, and one user at a time, 1 hour. And we need to stream this review with the team behind the scene with brainstorming. So what we say is no hippo syndrome, highest paid person opinion with taking decision. No, we don't want that. We want to take decision based upon data, and it's very important. And so here we observe. So most of the time, what we do is once we have the design done. So here the question you may have is, yeah, but how can the testing for user be valid, right? Variable, since nothing is clickable. So well, things are clickable, and if the way we ask question is if a user is clicking on one area of the dashboard where there is no design behind, then we ask them, but what would you expect behind? And then people start verbalizing. And it's very valuable actually because we save a lot of time. And well, last but not least, we need to have the air cover from the senior leaders to address the roadblock and to get the buy-in. That's also something that's very important. Get the buy-in from the senior leaders, and therefore they will be supportive and they will push the project in the several meetings they may have. Change mindset, very important. And this is how this dual track roadmap process actually is working. So it's working for a data platform. It's working extremely well for digital products. So here, of course, for data platform at the stage we are in right now, I want to say we are midway, so half a year. The team is growing, and the documentation as well. And the way we have to understand is because, once again, data is key. So we really have to ensure we have all the right people around the table. And it's an ongoing process. For a digital product, we will also have the same type of profile. So personally, for my design team, I do not segment researcher, UX designer, UI designer, then hand over to IT. I do enjoy having a team with people who have various backgrounds. For example, in my team today, I have designers who have technical backgrounds who come from engineering, and they did a career switch, and then now they are working as a product designer. So meaning that they are covering research, they are covering the user experience design, and they are also working on the UI. So why is that? Is because from a product perspective, the IT team and the designers have agreed on using a components library, and therefore we don't need to really spend time on the UI, not every day. And this is how we really focus on the value, and the designer can focus on understanding the problem of the users, the needs and the pain points. Not so much on the UI side. The job has to be done, but at this stage, the level of maturity of the product is such that people just move on. I also have in my team people who have creative background, so from a more advertising side, who are moving to UX. And why do I enjoy to have such profile? It's because the conversations are richer. So we do have an internal UX governance when we share our project, and where we feedback ourselves on what we are working on. And so this is how the team is structured. Then how the IT team is structured, that's something, it's a tough question. It depends, that's the right answer. It depends on the level of maturity of the product. It depends on what type of product are we working on. There are various type of product that we are working on with my team. And therefore, yeah, I don't have an answer. The budget as well is something that it's quite hard for me to share. It's pretty confidential, but from a design perspective, it's extremely cheap. We spend 1 day designing, sometimes a bit more, but we don't want to waste a lot of time designing because we want to capture feedback as early as possible. Then when we build the prototype during the product increment here, so we most of the time the budget here would be around 50 to 100,000 Singapore dollar to build this prototype in an incremental manner over a few months. We don't want to go beyond that. The guiding perspective here is to failing early is cost efficient. Therefore, we have to limit the cost as well, the investment that we want to put on the prototype. If we do not get any user traction, then we have to cut the losses as early as possible. And otherwise, the full production cost, this is something that depends on your product. I cannot advise you on that. The mindset is really for you to set up as early as possible the success metrics, how success looks like from a user perspective, from a product perspective, adoption, conversion rate, and so forth on the daily, monthly user on the platform. This depends on your product, and keep track. That's the best you can do. Early in the stage here, when we look at the ship product straight after design, we will have a pilot with limited number of users, but we still need to set up success metrics. More we have increments, more we increase the user pool, and more we get feedback. This is the perfect time to do A/B testing online. So therefore, you can split your users by groups and get feedback online. Then you limit as well the cost of failure. At the end, when you launch and hand over to the business, you should have very little doubt here. The product should have been validated by users. The adoption should pick up. And this is where after you need to look at the growth metrics. But that's a different topic. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. If you have any further questions, please reach out to me on my website or go on Digital Pathways when I'm partner and where there is a very good source of information. Okay, bye-bye and thanks for your time.
それではですね、ここから実際に Q&A セッションに移ってまいりたいと思います。そしてですね、ここからは通訳進行ポップインサイトの森川が務めます。森川さん、お願いしてもよろしいでしょうか。
はい、皆さんこんにちは。ポップインサイトの森川と申します。ここから先の Q&A セッションのパートをご担当させていただきます。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。すでにケビンさんにもですね、このセッションに参加いただいてますけれども、皆さんから頂戴している質問をこれからお伺いしていければなと思います。進め方なんですけれども、まず私が日本語で皆様から頂戴したご質問を読み上げます。続いて英語でそのご質問を通訳をしまして、ケビンさんに伺ってみます。ケビンさんから頂戴した英語での回答を日本語に翻訳して、また皆さんにお返しできればなというふうな形で進めていきたいと思います。それでですね、今からだいたい7時30分ぐらいまで担当させていただきますが、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。All right, Kevin, thank you for joining back again. If you're ready, I would like to jump into the Q&A session. Are you ready for this?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. Konnichiwa.
Hi, thank you so much for coming back. はい。では、早速になるんですけれども、皆さんから頂戴した最初のご質問に移りたいと思います。はい。ちょっと画面にも出るんですけれども、音声のみでご参加されている方もいらっしゃるかと思うので、一つずつ私の方で読み上げさせていただきます。最初のご質問ですね。UX、UI デザイナーなどが誰もいない状況で自社に UX の体制をインストールするにはどうすればよいでしょうかというご質問です。All right, Kévin, so this is our first question. In case there are listeners who are only joining with audio, I'll be reading out them first, and then you can answer the questions.
Sure.
Okay, so could you tell me how I can install or establish a UX system when there's no UI or UX designer in the company?
It's a great question. I understand here establishing a UX system will be how can we establish a UX culture so to be user-centric? And so without a UX designer, I believe it's possible because it's the UX per se should not be only the responsibility of the designer. It should be a shared responsibility with the other stakeholder. And so how to do it? So it means putting the user at the forefront, in the first place, in everything we do in the company. How to do that concretely? So first, I would suggest to bring data, analyze qualitative and quantitative data. So meaning that if we are talking about analysis, so online is more obvious because we can track data from the behavior. Then we can bring this to the conversation, as well as some verbatim, some feedback from the users that they can share from the various channels that the company have in place. So once we have the both data, qualitative and quantitative, then we do not share opinions in the project. It's not what you think versus what I think. It's about what the user do and don't do, and therefore we can generate hypotheses. This is how I would suggest to establish a UX culture within the team and the company when there is no designer.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you for your answer. Let me then translate that into Japanese. はい、素晴らしいご質問ありがとうございました。この質問の中にある UX の体制をインストールするというのは UX の文化を浸透させることというふうに言い換えられるかと思います。で、UX の文化を浸透させるためにはいかにユーザーセントリックな考え方を組織に浸透させられるかというところが鍵になってくるというふうにお話しいただきました。で、それを達成するにはどうすればよいかというと、ユーザーセントリックな考え方、ユーザー中心的な考え方をデザイナーだけが持つべき考え方でなくて、他のメンバーにも要求されるべき責務であるというふうな概念を浸透させていくことがいいでしょうというふうにお話しいただきました。で、そのための実際の方法論としては、例えばデータを持ち出して定量的にユーザーの行動を観察する、あるいはユーザーから上がってきた定性的なフィードバックをチーム全体で共有する、こういうユーザーの行動であったりですとか、ユーザーからの意見というものは全員が直面するべき課題であるというような価値観を共有することができれば、UX の文化、ユーザーセントリックな、ユーザー中心的な考え方というものを組織の中に浸透させていく良い第一歩になるんじゃないかというふうにご回答いただきました。ご質問ありがとうございました。はい。では続いて次のご質問に移りたいと思います。今回のプロジェクトを進めるにあたって一番苦労した点、大変だった点と、どのようにそれを克服したか教えてくださいというご質問をいただきました。こちら聞いてみたいと思います。Okay, Kevin, so this next question is about your current project. I believe this project is still in progress, but could you tell me what the most difficult part of this project was so far, and how did you or your team or your squad overcome it?
So can I give two answers to this question?
Okay, then let me, please give me the first part first so that I can translate them in.
So the first part, what was the most difficult was really to analyze the data, because as I was sharing earlier, we really ran a global analysis to ask people from the bank how they use data to take business decisions. And we got, a very wide range of answer, from the top manager to the person who is really hands-on into the reporting. So therefore, the most difficult part during the research was to analyze the answers from the users into a meaningful manner and to exclude the ad hoc answers. Because, so I'm a bit lengthy, sorry. Some people really have zero problem, but they are satellite, meaning that those extreme users, we had to exclude them from the research. Some of them who were very brand new struggle a lot versus the extreme users who have been in the bank for a while. They know exactly where to find. So we had to exclude them and to look at the most common use problem for the most common users. So we really spend a lot of time doing the research, analyzing, in order to have meaningful user journey mapping, the same that we saw in the presentation. That was the first, the main difficult problem.
Okay. Then please provide me with how you overcome the story in the next session. Okay. Let me translate the first part first. はい、どのような点が大変だったか、どのように克服したかというところなんですけども、まずどのような点が大変だったかという点についてご回答いただきました。で、一番大変だった点はスライドの中でもご紹介いただいてましたけれども、データの解析が最も大変でしたと。で、グローバルな世界中のアナリストがどういうふうにデータを取り扱っているかということを解析されたので、かなり幅広い回答が地域性もあってのことだと思うんですけれども、さまざまなエリアのリサーチャーの方がさまざまな意見を寄せられたというふうにお話しいただきました。で、そういったかなり幅広い回答、トップマネージャーからジュニアの方まで回答されたような内容を幅広い 回答の中から本当に価値のある示唆を抽出する、得ることが一番大変なポイントでしたというふうにお話しいただいています。で例えば、現状に完全に満足していて、もう何も変えることがないよというような極端な意見を出される方も中にはいらっしゃったようなんですけれども、そもそも今回のプロジェクトの出発点として、かなり多くのリサーチャーの方が不満を抱えているというところがあったので、一旦そういった意見は除外して考える必要があるなど、かなり幅広い回答をいかに示唆に消化させていくかといったプロセスが大変だったというふうにお話しいただきました。Okay, and following to the how did you overcome it section part? Can you tell us some stories?
Sure. So how we overcame this problem of having this broad range of behavior? We excluded the edge cases. So the person who have been in the bank for 14 years, who knows exactly who to ask and where is the file to find the data. And if the file is not there, they exactly know who is the point of contact. We excluded them because anyway, they rely not so much on the processes and they rely on the people. So they call directly, they know. So we excluded them. And we excluded as well the newcomer who had a behavior where they just wanted to get the plan about how to do their job, but very low autonomy in a way that they were not self-driven, sorry. So those who were not self-driven and just wanted to wait for the manager to tell them where to find things, we also excluded them because whatever is in place, they will just wait for the plan about how to do their job. So we excluded the extreme users, in short, and we really focused on the core of the personas.
Okay, that's pretty clear. What was the kind of percentage of those extreme users or extreme opinions?
No, pretty low. And
so there are quite few opinions that you have to exclude.
Yeah, we had a few. So for example, the struggle really for these hedge cases was in Europe, the first person we interviewed was an edge case. So therefore, we really had to interview more people to make ourselves an opinion.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we really stopped at the first person we interviewed for the different location, we could have done a mistake. So we really had to be more perseverant, and we had to really keep going to get more feedback in order to make ourselves a valid opinion.
To approach much closer to the core opinions. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, right. Thank you. はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。続いて、先ほどお話しいただいた、かなり幅広い回答が挙げられた中から、いかに価値のある示唆につなげていくかというプロセスについてなんですけれども、一言で言うと、極端な意見を除外することで、それを乗り越えたというふうにご回答いただきました。例えば、もうかなり長年の経験がある、もうベテランの銀行員、ベテランのメンバーの方で、誰に聞けばどういうデータが手に入るか、あるいはどのデータセットにアクセスすればどのような情報が手に入るかといったことで熟知している人に聞いてもあまり問題意識は上がってこなかったり、逆に全くの新人の方であれば基本的にマネージャーの言う通りにマネージャーの指示に沿って作業をしているので、あまり主体的に自分からデータを探しに行く経験をしてないので、逆にそういう方も問題意識が出てくることは少なかったので、そういった意見を排除というとちょっと極端かもしれないですけれども、そういった意見を一旦除外して検討を進める必要がありましたというふうにお話しいただきました。はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。続いての質問に移りたいと思います。はい、解析に使うツールあるいはプログラミング言語に関するご質問ですね。こちら聞いてみたいと思います。企業のデジタルカルチャーの浸透が DX にとって重要で Python を使いこなせる社員数を増加させることが必要とありました。他の言語ではなく Python をお勧めされる理由と、どの程度のことができることが必要か教えてくださいというご質問いただきましたので聞いてみたいと思います。Okay, so our next question is about what kind of tools we should be using and how we should be familiar with it. You mentioned that it's important for DX to install digital culture in companies and that it is necessary to increase the number of employees who can use Python in particular. Could you tell me why you recommend Python instead of other languages and what level of proficiency is required?
No, a very good question. I completely understand why the question is asked. So the first question was about increasing the number of people who can code on the business side. So the main reason, before I start talking about the tool and the language, the main reason about why do we want to increase the number of business users to be able to code is to limit the reliance on IT. Otherwise, it means that business has a dependency on IT, and therefore it really increases the time to get the answer, to get the report, to get the data. So this is the first problem we wanted to solve. So nowadays, even HR, when we are hiring business people, being able to code is a requirement. So now it means that the change mindset really kick-started in the company. Then why Python in particular? This came after we did a benchmark with the analyst and with the team within the data team about what is the best language to use. The answer from them was Python is the best language because is the most efficient. So therefore, this is the one we should promote to the business. And therefore, so far, it's working pretty well. So the team within the developer within the data team who are currently building Python script, right, are getting pretty good answers. So therefore, so far we still keep inside Python as being the language to use. It may change. We keep an open mind, but this is where we are so far.
Right. Just to be clear, when you say IT, do you refer to the IT department of the company, right?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry,
okay.
IT department. Yeah.
All right. And when you said Python was efficient, does it mean that Python seemed to be good in learning efficiency point of view?
Absolutely. The amount of effort required to learn the language, put in parallel to the answer, the result that we can get is actually pretty high. So therefore, that's why we are promoting this one versus others.
All right. That's quite clear. Me, myself, is an engineer as well, so I certainly understand that point. Thank you. Okay. はい、ご質問、とても良いご質問ありがとうございますとお話しいただきました。で、そもそもデジタルカルチャーの浸透にとって、コードかける人材が多いことは重要ですと。で、特にビジネスサイドでコードかける人が必要なのは IT 部門への依存を減らしたいというのが強い背景としてあったというふうにお話しいただきました。何かそのコードを書くことによって解決しなければならないことがあるときに、つどつど IT 部門に問い合わせをして、その返事を待つというプロセスは非常に無駄が多かったので、今では新しいビジネス部門において新しい人材を採用するときも、部分的にコードを書くことができることを要件にし始めているほど、このビジネスサイドのメンバーがコードをかけることは重視されているというふうにお話しいただきました。で、なぜ Python を選んだかという点については、これアナリストの中にすでに存在したデータチームの方々と協議しながらいろんな言語の中から選ばれたそうなんですけれども、一番大きな強かったポイントとしては、最も効果的に学習できると、最も学習曲線を考えたときに、一番少ない努力で多くのことができることになる、そのレバレッジを効かすことができるという点が、選定の大きな理由だというふうにお話しいただきました。一方で Python が今後もずっと一番いい選択肢であり続けるとは限らないので、そこは継続的に新しい言語だったり技術ができてきたら、それを追っかけていきたいというふうにお話しいただきました。もうちょっと補足としてどのようなことができるか、ことが必要かというご質問を含まれていたので、そこを最後に重ねて聞いてみたいと思います。Okay, and in addition to your last answer, what level of proficiency or how much should you be able to deal with Python if you are to join such digital-oriented team?
It's a good question. So I don't have the answer at the very granular level, to be honest. The level of proficiency is really to be able to customize the own script based upon your needs and be able to read the script from somebody else. That will be the level. So I don't think it's a very high level of proficiency because I've been able as well to learn and do something on my own, and I'm not an engineer. Okay. So I believe the level of proficiency is quite low, but yeah, still there is a learning curve, clearly.
Okay, so that into that level where you don't have to refer to the IT department a lot. Or
Absolutely.
Like okay,
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. はい、これもとても良いご質問ですとお話しいただきました。で、ちょっとチームが求めているものとか、チームが目標としているものによったりするので、一言では言い表しにくいというふうにお話しいただいたんですけど、一つの基準としては、自分がやりたいこと、自分がデータを使って達成したいこと、解析したいことがある程度自分でできるようになることっていうのが一つと、あともう一つは、他の人が書いたコードを見て、その人がどういう意図を持って、どういう情報を処理するためにそのコードを書いたのかっていうのが分かるようになることっていうのが一つの基準になるだろうというふうにお話しいただきました。で、先ほどの回答と関連するんですけれども、それに加えて自分がやりたいと思ったことをなるべく IT 部門の支援を受けずにできるようになることっていうのが、ちょっと定量的ではないんですけれども、一つの目安になるだろうというふうにお話しいただきました。ご質問ありがとうございました。はい、では続いてのご質問に移りたいと思います。ユーザージャーニーに関するご質問ですね。ユーザージャーニーからプロダクトバックログへの展開の際、UX チームはユーザーストーリーを期待値の工程に応じて優先順位付けするとお話しされていました。期待値はどのように算出されているのでしょうかというご質問いただいたので聞いてみたいと思います。Okay, so our next question is regarding the user journey. When transforming the user journey to the product backlog, as you've mentioned in the slides, you said that you're going to prioritize the user stories according to their expectations. And what kind of calculation did you do to evaluate those expectations? That's the question.
Sure, great question. Here, so we work with the team in Agile. So therefore, when we translate the journey into a user story mapping, we use this tool. Then so from a design team, we represent the user desirability that we are, and we rank based upon what we call the job to be done. That's how we rank the user expectation in terms of functional and emotional point of view. Then we talk to the developers because it's always these three key persons: the designer, the developers, and the business. So developers will rank according to the technical difficulties, so what we call the feasibility. And the PO in the room, so the business represent the business value. So here, I want to say that everything is business value at this stage, right? So we were really focusing on the user and the developers, desirability versus technical feasibility. That's how we really rank it.
So you kind of have three point of views, but you really put emphasis on the first two.
Correct. The way we consider the data platform from a business angle, it has to be done as a whole. And therefore, when we look at the user journey and we rank and prioritize this expectation, we look at two metrics: job to be done from the users, functional and emotional, and from the developers is the feasibility. So we use we use this agile metrics. Tools. Sorry.
All right. So that's kind of two
story point from the developer side.
Okay. All right. That's clear. Thank you. はい、続いても素晴らしいご質問ありがとうございましたとお話しいただきました。で、アジャイルに近しい体制をとっていたので、こういった期待値を算出する際には、大きく2つの指標を使ったというふうにお話しいただきました。一つはデザインチームが整理をするjob to be done というキーワードをおっしゃっていただいたんですけども、これはそのユーザーにとってその機能が実装された時の、その機能的な便利さであったりですとか、感情としてどれぐらい嬉しいか、機能面で言うとどれぐらい仕事が楽になるかであったりですとか、感情面で言うとどれぐらい嬉しいか、あるいはマイナスがゼロにできるかプラスにできるかといった観点が一つと、これをある程度定量的に算出するというのが一つと、あともう一つ、開発者から持ち寄る技術的な難易度ですね。で、これはフィージビリティというキーワード出てきましたけども、開発の難易度がどの程度かっていうのは、これは技術的な観点から開発チームが持ち寄って、で、技術的な難易度が低くて、かつ、ジョブトゥビーターンによって達成できるものが大きいものから順に進めていくと、そうすることによって、おのずとビジネスバリューを高いビジネスバリューを目指した状態で優先順位を決定づけることができるというふうにお話しいただきました。Right, just to be sure, when you prioritize these subjects, you first work on ones with high feasibility and high job to be done metrics. Am I correct? I'm afraid your microphone is off.
Sorry. No, it depends. It's a great question because at first, from a technical feasibility, we really had to focus on building the foundation. So therefore, at this stage, we kind of focus on the big piece to build at first. But then you're right. Moving forward, we had the tendency to also have a good balance on in the sprint on the low-hanging fruits versus the big piece. So some of the big pieces are rolling over in terms of sprints. So it depends. That's the answer.
Okay, so in early stages, there might be scenes where you cannot prioritize easier tasks than the difficult ones.
That's right. Yeah, to build the foundation. Then over time, yes, we take the more feasible one.
Okay, thank you so much. はい、1点補足いただいたんですが、私先ほど簡単でかつユーザーにとってインパクトが大きいものから順にというふうにお話訳させていただいたんですけど、それには例外があって、特にプロジェクトの初期においては技術的なファウンデーション、基礎に当たるような部分の開発に注力しなければいけないシーンが多いので、特に初期においてむやみやたらと簡単なものから順にやっていくと基礎おろそかになってしまいがちなので、その点に関しては注意が必要だというふうに補足をいただきました。はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。それでは、続いてのご質問に移っていきたいと思います。はい、次の質問も、評価マトリックスに関する質問ですね。プロトタイプ検証の際には評価マトリックスを使用するとお話しされていましたが、ケビンさんのプロジェクトにおいて評価マトリックスではどのような項目を評価されましたか、その項目の中で特に重視したものがあれば教えてくださいというご質問ありました。聞いてみたいと思います。Okay, so our next question kind of relates to the last one. You mentioned that you use a success metrics for prototype verification. And can you give us some examples from your project? What items did you evaluate in the success metrics? And if there were any items that were particularly important for you?
Great question. Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the design prototype, right, success metrics, we will have the task success rate. That's one angle that we're looking at. How do we prototype a data platform? We focus on the dashboard. From a design angle, we do have different level of prototype. We have the pre-totype. Pre-totype is the facade that we are building by design, and we do have the prototype where we are testing some of the technical angle as well. So here for a data platform, two things. The first one, the prototype by design, here is about a dashboard and how users are able to perform the task. So pretty close to a usability testing here. Then on the prototype side, on the technical angle, well, we're testing, for example, one point that we shared is the lack of literacy in terms of data knowledges. We are testing as well a shared platform to have a central database for the knowledges related to data naming convention and the way we calculate as well. So we are currently testing that, and we are building an HTML web platform internally to host all these knowledges. What we are testing here is about giving access to different business units so that they own the definition of the data. We are currently testing that, so that's a bit more advanced, a different angle, but we are doing this right now. Versus on the design as well, we test the dashboard.
Okay. Just to be clear, you've gave us examples of the task success rates.
Correct.
Does it mean that how many of the participants were able to proceed to the last part of your prototype or prototype? Am I correct?
So for the prototype, we ask open question. How would you look for a report related to client financials? So it depends on who do we ask, but we build this prototype and we give them the access, and then we observe how they're able to click through the design. And then we, if they're not able and they're looking for their path, therefore for us it's a failure. So how many? We usually say that 5% per business unit is enough.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. That's clear. はい、ご質問ありがとうございます。デザインのプロトタイプにおいては、 大きくその途中のスライドの中でご説明ありましたけど、プリントタイプとプロトタイプという少し異なる概念を使いますと。で、先ほどスライドの中にありましたけれども、発見トラックの中で使われるプリントタイプと、それから導入のトラックの中で使われるプロトタイプになるんですけども、プリントタイプにおいては、よりどちらかというとデザイン重視の、デザインに関する検証項目を多めに設けると。で、反対にプロトタイプにおいては、実際に機能の作り込みを部分的に進めていくので、その機能が正しく使われるか、何も案内がなくても、その機能が意図している通りに使ってもらえるかといったところを確認することが多いというふうにお話しいただきました。で、一つの例としては、タスクサクセスレートと呼ばれるものがありますと、でこれはユーザーテスト等される方においては、すでにご存知の方もいらっしゃると思うんですけれども、どのくらいの程度の方がオープンクエスチョンだけを投げた場合、それから少し簡単な説明をした場合に、それぞれの場合においてどれぐらいの割合の方がこちらが意図している通りにシステムを使ってタスクを完遂できるかどうかと、そういった指標を使いながら、全社に公開できるような形で検証を進めていったというふうにお話しいただきました。はい、ご質問をありがとうございました。次の質問に移りたいと思います。はい、ラーニングラボというプロダクト改善のサイクルの中では、ユーザーにインタビューする定性調査のお話がありました。評価マトリクスのような定量調査とインタビューのような定性調査をどのように組み合わせてプロダクト改善を実施されているのか教えてください。というようなご質問をいただきました。聞いてみたいと思います。Okay, so our next question is about quantitative and qualitative data. In the product improvement cycle called Learning Lab, you mentioned qualitative research that involves interviewing users. And could you tell me how you combine quantitative research such as the evaluation metrics and qualitative research such as interviews to improve your products?
Great question. I frankly believe that having a data-centered approach when we are looking at in user-centric design it is really key. So therefore, having a mix of qualitative and quantitative is primordial. So how do we do it? So here, because the question is open, right? So therefore, I will also give recommendation so that it can fit to different type of products. So interviewing, I will look at it. So qualitative, sorry, my bad. I will look at qualitative from different angles because being in a private bank, I have a lot of roadblocks. So hopefully in the audience we have people who are working more on the retail and have access in a more easy manner to the end users. But interviewing is key. So what I try to do is for each of the market, I try to have a recurring, an ongoing interview cycle with clients. At least one per quarter, but worst case scenario, twice per year. And at least 5 clients per market. I have 4 markets. So therefore, what my recommendation is really to keep the conversation open, to have one-on-one interview with clients and to ask, so it depends on the domain, but to ask questions really that try to cover most of the product and services from your company. This is one, interviewing. Number
okay.
2 is, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. You mentioned about making interviews in a quarterly or similar basis. Do you ask the same questions repeatedly to these clients?
It depends. I do have the same core question. So I go back to my domain and the bank. What is the set of questions that I always ask? Why did you join the bank? What was the element that made you join the bank and decide about coming to my bank versus another one? Most of the time, my clients have multiple banks. Therefore, the next question is, why do you use my bank versus the others? For what purpose? These two questions I always had them.
Okay.
Then it depends on the nature of the research. So last year, for example, on a different product, the focus was really on why the clients came to the digital platform to read content.
Okay.
So I had a set of questions was really focusing on that front. Mm-hmm. And at the end, before closing the interview, I focus on digital products because we do have a huge focus on the digital products. So this is one always that I ask. And lastly, it's an open question. And it's if I would give you a magic stick, what would you do? And therefore here we are.
Okay.
in a complete fictional aspect.
Okay.
So to answer you, I do have core questions that I ask to everyone, and I do have some set of questions that I ask according to the bank priorities.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And sorry to interrupt and continue to the quantitative part. Yes.
So just for the qualitative, because I just want to add on top of that, the one-on-one is primordial, but for some reason, some companies do not let the UX team or the product team access to the users. So there are alternatives. We can use proxy users. For me, I use the relationship managers as a proxy user to my client. We can also use the digital channel to capture qualitative feedback. Some tools are in place that we can put on the website, on the mobile application, in order to open a window to the client and ask them a few questions. This works pretty well. It's an alternative. That's for the qualitative aspect. On the quantitative side, very important to track the funnel analytics about where people land on the products and where they go as a subsequent action from the landing page. So this is what we call the funnel. And I do a lot of that. Where's the bounce rate? What is the adoption? At what time in the day people log in? Very important to combine these two. Then what's important is to overlap these two, because what people do and what people say they do is sometimes different. And I have observed that. I still remember redesigning a hotel website redesign, and during the testing, so one-on-one interview, think aloud method. So we let the user going through the scenario, and then we play the video and we ask questions. And we had some respondents saying that the website is not working well, it's not a good website, but they perform the task very fast. Versus we had people saying that the website is great and they can do whatever they need to do on the website, but the time to accomplish the task was way longer. So for us, it was a failure, but for them, it was a success. So we have to be careful. That's why the cross, the overlap of qualitative and quantitative really matters.
Okay. So I think you just provided an example of when qualitative and quantitative analysis result in a different way. In such cases, how do you find the sweet spot, or how do you organize them into to move forward?
So when I look at the volume at the quantitative data, I try to analyze the pattern. The pattern of, is it a particular time where clients are accessing the platform and to do what task? And this is, and then I write them down and I share them with the product team and say, I've observed here some patterns, and this is, I think, the next, what will be the set of questions I will ask to the clients the next time I have an interview with them. And then either the pattern remains, and then when I ask the question to the clients, we understand better what happened and why it happened that way. And if we can't, then we keep the hypothesis and we try to look at other type of data. So we have, for example, the complaint. Complaint are also quite an interesting type of data to look at. Some clients complain straight to the CEO.
Okay. So you create a hypothesis out of those patterns. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。続いてもとても良いご質問ですねとお話しいただいています。で、ラーニングラボを含めて、ケビンさん関わっていらっしゃるプロジェクトではデータ重視のアプローチをすることがとても多いので、ご質問いただいている通り、定量解析と定量的な分析っていうのをうまい具合に組み合わせることがとても重要ですというふうにお話しいただきました。で、まず定性調査に関してお話しいただいたんですけども、定性調査においてはもう何よりもインタビューが最も重要だというふうにお話しいただきました。で、インタビューする際になるべく多くの視点をせっかくインタビューするのであれば得ることが重要ですというふうにお話しいただきました。一つの例としては、ケビンさんはケビンさんの部署では最低でもクォーターに1回、四半期に一度ですね、四半期に一度異なるクライアントに対してインタビューを実施されていると。で、この定期的に行われるインタビューというのはとても大事で、これを行うことによって顧客のトレンドの変化であったりですとか、そういったものをいち早く把握することができるようになりますと で、定期的なインタビューをするんですけれども、毎回全く同じ質問を繰り返すのではなくて、いくつかのコアとなる質問は残しつつ、状況だったりですとか、その時会社において確認したい、プロジェクトにおいて確認したいユーザーの特性を把握するための質問を組み合わせて、質問を設計されているというふうにお話しいただきました。で、コアとなってくる質問は、ケビンさんの場合ですと、なぜうちの銀行を選んでくれたんですかとか、そういった最も基本的な質問セットはコアの質問として残しておいて、すべてのインタビューセッションに使うんですけれども、それ以外にはその時その時において必要な質問を作って組み合わせていらっしゃるというふうにお話しいただきました。でもう一つインタビューにおいて重要な話として追記補足いただいたのが、UX チームが直接クライアントにアクセスできるような体制を何が何でも作ることが大事ですというふうにお話しいただきました。一部の会社では UX チームに直接ユーザーにアクセスする権限を渡さないことがあるんだけれども、なるべくそういった状況は解消した方が良いというふうにお話しいただきました。どうしてもそういった状況を解消できないような場合には、例えばプロキシユーザーを使うであったりですとか、あるいはウェブサイトにおいてアンケートフォームを設けたり、ポップアップを出してユーザーに質問を投げてみたりとか、そういったツールを使う方法で回避できる方法もあるので覚えておくと良いでしょうというふうに教えていただいています。はい、ちょっと長くて恐縮なので、続いて定量的な分析に関するお話です。定量分析においては、最も大事なのはファネル分析だというふうにお話しいただきました。で、例えば、ランディングページから実際にユーザーに求めている行動を取ってもらうための画面に至るまでで、どの画面でどれぐらいのユーザーが離脱しているかというファネル分析という手法がありますけれども、これが最も重要ですと。で、一つ、この定量分析と定性分析を比較する際のお話として、事例としてご紹介いただいたのが、キービンさんがかつてホテルのウェブサイト、予約サイトですね、のリデザインを担当されたときに、ユーザーの意見としては、とても使いにくいというふうに回答されたデザインの案があったんですけれども、実は蓋を開けてみると、データの観点から、定量的な観点からは、そのデザインの案が最もユーザーが早くタスクを完遂できているというような、ちょっと定量的な分析の結果と定性的な意見の聴取の結果が対立するようなケースがあったというふうにお話しいただいたんですけども、こういうような場面においては、なぜそういうような対立が生まれるのか、そういうちょっと噛み合わない結果が生まれたときは、さらなる深い洞察を得るチャンスだと捉えて、例えば、その中にどういうパターンがあるか、早いユーザーにはどういう特性があるのか、特定の顧客層が早く終えてたりすることないかみたいなことを深く探っていく、そういった対立を本当に仮説を作り出してパターンを見つけていく、検証していくっていうのがとても重要ですというふうに最後お話しいただきました。はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。ちょっと時間の関係で次かその次ぐらいの質問が最後になるかと思うんですが、続けて聞いていきたいと思います。はい、リサーチした情報の管理・共有の経験値が低く困っています。紹介されていたデータの、プロジェクトですかね、プラットフォームかな、プラットフォームは自社開発されて独自に管理方法を構築されたのでしょうか。はい、聞いてみたいと思います。Okay, this or the next question might be our last question regarding the time. We're having difficulty with our lack of experience in managing and sharing research results information. Did you develop your data platform system in-house and build your own management method?
I understand we have two questions. The first one is to share the research information, managing and sharing the research information. Okay. And the second one, so I will answer the second one quickly because we are building the data platform in-house.
Okay.
To be clear, we did the analysis.
Okay. 最初の独自に構築されているかどうかについては、独自に作ってますというふうにお話しいただいてます。Okay, please go on.
The analysis we did was simply cost benefits perspective, having a vendor versus building the team in-house, and the maintenance fees. Because we want to keep an agile mindset, therefore the set of features may change along the way. We want to build the team in-house. That's for the second part.
Okay, thank you. 独自に開発する上でもちろん検討したのは外部のベンダーを使ったり、サードパーティーのものを使うか、自社で開発するかということを検討したんですけれども、自社で開発することによるメリットの方が、外部ベンダーに頼むコストよりも高いと最終的に判断されましたと。で、その判断の理由の一つが、自分たち自身もアジャイルな体制を敷きたいということで、何かそのデータの管理方法に変更を加えたいとなったときに、ベンダーに頼んで回収してもらうよりも、自社で回収するというアジャイルなマインドセットを持ち続けるという意味においても、自社での開発を選択したというふうにお話しいただきました。 はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。もう一つご質問できそうなので、次に進みたいと思います。はい。経営者に対してもし一つだけ UX の状況を説明する際に、定性的、定量的なデータをそれぞれ一つだけ選ぶとすれば、どんなデータを選びますか？なぜそのデータを選ぶのかを合わせてご教示ください。Okay, this might be our last question. If you had to choose only one qualitative to explain the UX overall situation to senior management, what data would you choose? Please also tell me why you would choose that data, is the question.
It's a very hard one because, okay, I will try to answer, but most of the time we cannot look only at one data, because one data will tell us one story and another data will tell us another story. So my recommendation really is to cross the data. Please use as many data as you can to share with the management. But management, so here I will say we need to apply UX design thinking to ourselves when we share data. So we need to empathize with the management. And here what I want to say is what management want to hear from us, what matters to them. If we have, let's take a mobile application, a digital platform, what they want to hear is the investment worth it, return on investment. And here, if we are looking at a banking application, I believe the data that will matter, adoption, number of registered users, and how often they come to the platform. So the recurring, and here we want to look daily active users, weekly active users, monthly active users. In terms of qualitative data, if we have transaction on the platform, clearly the management want to hear the conversion rate. That's natural. That will be for the quantitative. Then for the qualitative, brand reputation, I believe, don't get me wrong, it depends. That's the short answer. But brand reputation is always at stake when we talk to people, because to look back with my story earlier, the experience may be bad, but people will think that it was a pleasant experience. The experience can be very fast and efficient, but people are not happy with it. So therefore, the emotional aspect, the reputation of the brand is at stake here when we talk to the clients. So this is what I will look at. I have a last story, but maybe you want to translate the first one.
Okay.
A last recommendation to close after, if you don't mind.
Okay, all right. That's perfect. Okay. So let me answer the first section. はい、とても難しいご質問ですとお話いただきました。なぜ難しいかというと、ほとんどの場合、一つのデータから示唆を得ることは極めて難しいので、できるだけ複数のデータを組み合わせて仮説を作ったり、ストーリーを組み立てることが大事ですというふうにお話しいただきました。一つのデータでは一つのストーリーしか伝えることができないので、なるべく何でしょうか、立体的なというか、示唆を得るためにより多くのデータを可能な限り組み合わせることが重要ですというふうにお話しいただきました。で、回答、それぞれ定量と定性の観点からご回答いただいたんですけども、定量的なものに関しては、これは割とシンプルで、デザイン思考を自分自身に取り入れて、マネジメントが最も重視していることは何かっていう視点に立って考えると、おのずと答えが見えてくるんじゃないでしょうかというふうにお話しいただきました。例えばデジタルなプラットフォームを開発していて、例えば開発に投資をしていて、ユーザーからの課金で収益を上げているような場合には、その比率ですね、ROI、投資がどれぐらい回収できているかという観点であったりですとか、分かりやすい例で言うと、ユーザー数であったり、アクティブユーザーの数だったり、そういう ROI 自身それものであったり、ROI に直結するような指標が重要になるケースが多いのではないかというふうにお話しいただきました。で、定性的な部分に関しては、一言で回答すると、ブランド評価、ブランドレピュテーションという言葉を使っていただきましたけれども、ブランドの評判みたいなものがとても結構経営層は気にすることが多いですと。ROI だけを追っているとなかなか見えてこないのが、ユーザーの感情的な部分、SNS でどういった評判が形成されているかだったりですとか、そういった部分をもし定量的なデータに添えて、経営層に示すことができれば良いのではないかなというふうにご回答いただきました。Okay, do you have anything to add on to that answer?
Oh, I just wanted to share, because we have a few questions around data and how to convince management. There is one UX tool that we call the five whys. We need to ask 5 questions in order to understand the root of the problem. And I have one tip, and I use this in my own company. to pitch to management why do we need to look at data in a qualitative and quantitative manner. Here, think about what if we change company. We are now a company selling drills, drills to do a hole in the wall. And the first question is why people buy a drill. So then we start asking the question, why? So why do you buy a drill for? Oh, I buy a drill to drill a hole in the wall. Oh, but why do you want to drill a hole in the wall? Oh, I want to drill a hole in the wall to put a shelf. Okay. Why do you want to put a shelf in this room? Also, I want to put a shelf in the living room and I want to put books on it. Okay. But why do you want to put books in this shelf in the living room? Also, I want to put these books because when I invite my friends to come over, I look smart. And this is the key. This is why people are buying a drill, is to look smart when the friends are coming over. So this short story helped me internally to pitch for doing client interview and to pitch as well to have access to data in order for me to understand what is the state here.
Thank you.
And this is what I recommend for everyone.
Thank you for sharing that story. Let me translate that. Let me try to translate that. Okay. はい、付け加えで一つ補足いただいたんですけども、ユーザーの根本的な問題であったりですとか、課題に迫るためには、繰り返しなぜという質問を重ねる必要があるというふうなお話いただきました。ドリルを買う人はドリルが欲しいんじゃなくて、穴を開けたいんだっていうような話は結構広く使われている例だと思うんですけれども、その話に続きがあるというような形で今お話しいただきました。でまずどうしてユーザーが穴を開けるドリルが欲しいのかっていうと、ユーザーは穴を開けたいからだっていうふうに言うことがあると。これは結構幅広く使われている例だと思います。ただ、さらにそこを深掘りしていくと、なぜ穴が欲しいのかというと、実はそのユーザーは穴を開けてそこに棚をつけたいんだというふうに回答したとします。そうすると次に出てくる質問は、なぜ棚をつけたいのですかという質問になります。で仮にユーザーがその棚をリビングルームに設置して、そこに本を飾りたいんですというふうに回答したとします。そしたらさらにそこに重ねて、なぜ本を飾りたいんですかという質問ができると思うんですけども、そうするとユーザーが例えば、私は本を飾って賢く見えたいんですと。リビングルームに立派な本を飾ることによって賢く見えたいので、それで僕は本をリビングルームに置きたいんですというふうにどんどん深掘っていくことによって、ユーザーが求めているのでは、ドリルではなくて、ましてや穴でもなくて、実際にはそのユーザーは友達に賢く見られたいというような根本的なニーズにたどり着くことができるというような事例を最後に補足としてご紹介いただきました。はい、ではちょっと時間が来てしまいましたので、Q&A のセッション、一旦ここで打ち切りたいと思います。ご質問いただいた皆さん、本当にありがとうございました。All right, Kévin, so that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you so much for joining us. And I believe Ms. Kagawa will have some more statements to add on to our seminar. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
ありがとうございました。